If you're a Rush fan, there's a good chance that you have one of several philosophies about this group. There are those that love the 70s material and feel it's absolutely untouchable. They feel that the 80s and the 90s stuff was kind of derivative. There are those that embrace some of that more modern stuff, perhaps because that was what they were raised with. There are some that immediately align themselves with the big albums, either that or immediately go with an album such as Moving Pictures because of its popularity, because of the song Tom Sawyer. Whatever your philosophy might be about this group, Rush is one of the most important progressive music bands of the entirety of progressive music. They are legends of this genre and something that is extremely important for any newcomer of progressive music to check out. And it's pretty easy to do. You've heard the songs before. They've been in films, on the radio, and in fact, that introduction alone can turn a fan into a fanatic. It's exactly what happened with me. But we're going to see which philosophy I have. Some of you may know. And if my list is different than yours, then please post yours in the comments below and let's have a discussion. There are 19 albums in the Rush discography, so I'm going to try to rush through this a little bit, no pun intended. That way I don't take up too much time. I tend to get a little wordy. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's stop dilly-dallying. Let's rank them all Rush. And we start with number 19, which is Test for Echo. This one's just not long for memory for me. It's one that comes from that sort of era of the 80s and 90s where a lot of the albums that were coming out, it felt like they were trying to match the successes of Moving Pictures. They were able to get sales, but the material itself felt like it was a bit tempered. It was a bit up and down. Very much of a roller coaster ride during these two decades. Number 18 is Roll the Bones. Very similar philosophy. This time we jump to the 1990s, however, and we have a lot of sort of differing and varying opinions about this group. Even just from the actual album cover, this feels like one where they are sort of going and beating some dead horses to death. They have great ideas that are showcased on this album, and they still have a lot of pop and a lot of step, but it just doesn't feel like these albums or these songs have as much pop as some that came before, so their longing for memory is gone. Number 17 is Hold Your Fire. I don't remember almost anything about this album. That's unfortunate. Number 16 is Presto, and you can almost say the same thing for this, but this is one from the 80s, and it was able to turn some heads and was able to keep this band relevant for a little bit, but once again, it felt like after the success of Moving Pictures, it was a surprise that then made them have to kind of do things a certain way or try to replicate that success. And again, sales figures wise, the 1980s were extremely lucrative for Rush. But whenever it comes to these albums, the remembrance of them is sort of an up and down philosophy. You have some that do and others that just simply pass by this album. Number 15 is Power Windows. Kind of like Hold Your Fire. These are albums that do feel very derivative, like they have a very similar approach, and as a result, it causes jumbling. It causes you to think to yourself, man, a lot of this stuff does have a similar timbre to it. Yeah, they're the same band, but this is still something that has some problems behind it, at least in my opinion. Now, there are tracks on all of these albums, by the way, don't think that I'm knocking them, that are absolutely excellent. You know, it showed that Rush is still very talented as musicians. It's not like after Moving Pictures they just forgot how to make music. But these are just albums that feel like they are among a pack of 19. So you're going to have bottom of the rung contenders or ones that just don't lend themselves to memory the same way as perhaps your top 5 or your top 10. So don't think that this is a harsh knock. Really, with Rush, you can start anywhere and be just fine. Number 14 is Vapor Trails. This is a more modern Rush album and one that had a lot of great ideas that were sort of approached with it. It was the first album that I heard from them on an XM radio type thing, you know, as opposed to just the traditional radio. And Vapor Trails seemed to have a lot of great ideas and was coming after an era where they were struggling to really connect with their fan base. It seemed like the band was maybe just better off touring. But they come back with Vapor Trails and they were able to deliver something that's pretty decent. And as a result, this album is number 14. Number 13 is Snakes and Arrows. Same idea. This is early 2000s. And they were able to do exactly what Vapor Trails was able to do, but magnified a little bit further. It seemed like Vapor Trails and Snakes and Arrows were entering the band into this sort of new late stage philosophy where they just wrote music for the fun of it, and as a result that showed. It showed in the strength of some of the material, but it wasn't something that felt like a complete album effort. Number 12 is Grace Under Pressure. Now again, this is from that odd period, But Grace Under Pressure is also one that was right around the successes of Moving Pictures, so it was able to get a lot of a lot of heat based around that alone. And Grace Under Pressure still showed this band as exceptionally capable, not to mention the masters of their craft. Again, as I said before, these are not knocks on any of these albums. It's just simply that some are able to lend more to memory than others. Grace Under Pressure is one of those that definitely shows a prog metal or / prog rock band, mostly prog rock I would say, at the top of their craft and still on that musical mountaintop. Number 11 is Signals. This is one that's kind of an interesting pick, but I feel that it has a lot going for it. These are songs that have a lot of power, and their philosophical nature is one that just lends themselves to memory a lot further. Not to mention also, it's sort of a left field concept, and I like that. I like the fact that this album surprised me with its capability. Number 10 is Counterparts. Speaking of that, this is a 90s album that many sort of pass by or look over, but it's actually really strong. This is one that feels like what a complete effort in this era should have sounded like, and we immediately were able to get it from this album. From its very abstract looking album cover, very simplistic design, to the strength of the songs involved, this is just a really surprising little treat, and I like the fact that we were able to get that from this band. Number 9 is Rush. Yeah, self-titled debut, the beginning of the legend, which was able to initially craft their fan base and gain them a lot of acclaim. This is a terrific debut, one that shows so many of the different sides of this band, some things that would be matured upon and built upon throughout the 1970s to come, but at this point Rush was a young band, a hungry band that was unsure of what their future was going to be, so they put out the best album that they could, and they put out a classic. This is a terrific album, one that is pretty awesome still to listen to this day. It's only number 9. Here's a surprise, number 8, Clockwork Angels. What a great album this was a couple of years ago, wasn't it? Oh my gosh. Listening to this was the ultimate of surprises. It was the true treat, the testimony of Rush's successes throughout 3 to 4 decades long of being a band. Maybe, oh geez, am I even shortchanging it there? I may be. We may be talking actually about 5 decades. My apologies. Clockwork Angels is a terrific display of everything this band is about, and considering it's one of the final albums, if not, actually it is the final album that we're seeing from this group, wow, what a way to go out. What a way to go out. This was one that topped lists. This was one that was a part of the top whatever list of that year. It was fantastic, and I love this album to this day. It's a treat and a treasure. Number 7 is Permanent Waves. Wow. Another one that seems right there along that musical mountaintop, circling or being right around Moving Pictures. And I know that I mentioned that a lot. Is it going to be number 1? I can tell you right now, no, it's not. But this is such an important portion of their career. It was such an important era of their career that these albums all are magnified by themselves, but also have great material. That's the thing. The sound that you heard on an album such as Moving Pictures, and the sounds that you hear from the songs that you hear on the radio from this band, you're getting from an album such as Permanent Waves. This was an important disc. This was a landmark opportunity that was showing that this band had something to prove, and that these albums that they had released prior, which were legendary in their own right, they were now going to have something else to expect. And I don't think they even realized exactly what was to come. Number 6 is Caress of Steel. Now we're getting into the 70s material. Yes, I am a 70s traditionalist. If you have a problem with that, I can't help you, because I really, really loves the prog rock that Rush made in the 1970s. Caress of Steel is just a terrific disc. It's one that has a very simplistic album cover to it, but the music that is within it is just terrific. You have so many terrific moments for the prog rock fan in you, and I love this era of Rush considering they embraced the long song, they made these epics, they went to fantasy, they didn't necessarily stick within the realms of reality. They had a lot of creative juices pumping, and they were right there within a scene, within the prog rock scene of the 1970s, almost as like they were all playing a progressive game of one-upsmanship, or anything you can do, I can do better, alongside a band such as Genesis as an example. Caress of Steel is a terrific, terrific album. Number 5, Fly By Night. Yet another legendary album, one that has all of the sparkle and all of the glisten of the legends that are told about it, and as a result of it, it is seen as one of the most pivotal moments of heavy metal or rock and roll history. Definitely rock and roll history. And prog rock, oh, forget about it. This is a paramount, important, pivotal album. Still one that's not as pivotal as some of the others, but Fly By Night is still seen as a respectable masterpiece. One that is a masterclass in the craft done by a young, hungry band that perhaps still wasn't tasting the fruits of the successes that were yet to come, but were writing not only honest songs, but also fun songs. Songs that were easy to sort of play around with and enjoy in the car or enjoy in your bedroom. Great album, easy to return to, can't recommend it enough. Number 4 is A Farewell to Kings. We dive back into fantasy. I love these albums that are kind of seen as sort of the red-haired stepchilds of the 70s era, the ones that aren't as familiarized by, sort of the casual fans, because they're so good. They have such a uniqueness to them. And those longer tracks that may have looked intimidating by those who are trying to examine this band are really well worth it. My Lord. Whenever Rush goes long, they go long. And they also go big with them. Farewell to Kings is a beautiful example of this. Number 3 is Hemispheres. Do I need to say anything else? You might as well just copy and paste what A Farewell to Kings was able to do. And Hemispheres was able to take that and go even further with it. Dependent upon, regardless of actual showcase of, when this album was dropped by comparison to others, it's something where this era was a real stepping stone for this group. And everything was all leading toward the changeover and the difference that we would get from the band in the 1980s. They had to do something different. But Hemispheres, Farewell to Kings, and one other album we're going to talk about are true highlights of this era of Rush. Number 2, Moving Pictures. This is a really important album. It's a very accessible album. It's an album that's been heard by millions upon millions of people. It's definitely different from their 70s material, but I don't mind it at all because it's an awesome album. It is just such a cool album to listen to. Man, if you're going to have an album where you're going to become mainstream, quote unquote, you might as well just do it like Moving Pictures, because this is a mainstream album that does not feel mainstream whatsoever. It feels like it is just another Rush album and has strong material that just so happened to make it to radio airplay and just so happened to become part of our culture and part of our society. It is, just an album that happens to have a song on it that's been in movies and has been played to death on radio stations far and wide. Aside from that, the rest of the disc has a ton of classics, has some terrific material. Nothing here feels wasted. And there's a long song on there. Yeah, they go long on this album, and it's wonderfully done. Everything about this album is terrific. It is deserving of the praise that it gets, and it is deserving to be the typical first album by Rush that people hear. But this should be a stepping stone. It shouldn't be the stoppage point. Because number 1 is 2112. Is this really all that surprising? Probably not. I said it midway through, I'm a 70s Rush guy. And this is the paramount of 70s Rush. This is the super long 2112 song cycle that is absolutely terrific. It is a paramount part of rock history. It is an important track. It is cited as one of the most important epic songs in history. And it almost could be seen conceptually as anything you could do, I could do better. Because a band like Yes has Close to the Edge, a band like Genesis has Supper's Ready, and Rush has 2112. Everybody needed a big epic at that point, and Rush's is the one that is probably the longest for this world, the one that has the most lasting power. But included on this also are a couple of additional songs that aren't bad by their own account. And as a result, that's why this album feels like it is the transcendent Rush album, the one that took all of the ideas from some of their other prog rock albums, and somehow, some way, this is the little engine that was able to get rock history behind it and was able to get the fan base behind it. Their longest song is the one that everybody knows and loves, and aside from, the hits that you hear on the radio. Their longest song is the one that is oftentimes talked about within rock and roll history by fans, and long-time rock fans at that. This is the one that is seen as the epic to end all epics. Now we, of course, know that there are several other epics out there that perhaps could be seen as supersedent to 2112. But that might just be a metal versus rock controversy. This is a terrific song on a terrific album that is deserving of all of the legendary status that it has gotten, because it actually delivers. It's not one of those songs that whenever you listen to it, you feel let down. And that's what makes this album #1. So what was your list? Is it down there in the comments box below? I hope that it is. Thanks again for watching this. I hope that this isn't too long for y'all, but Rush, of course, has a ton of material. Thanks also for watching all of these Rank 'em All videos during this week. I hope that you've had a great holiday and you've been able to, scope out some new albums as a result of these lists and the ones that have been made throughout the season. This is it. This is the last one. Rank 'em All has now officially closed its doors, and I thank all of you for supporting this series, not to mention any of the other projects that have been here on this channel. I'm coverkillernation. We have a couple videos still left, so I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.